Hey everyone, Midits here. Pokemon is a ginormous franchise spanning tons of games, a show, cards, and merchandise. It is the highest grossing media franchise in the world, in fact, with nothing even being comparable to its level of revenue. So it's honestly impressive how terrible the most recent games are. Okay, I may be exaggerating a bit. The most recent Pokemon games on the Switch are not awful, but they are disappointing considering just how popular Pokemon is. The graphics, while gradually improving, still feel significantly behind. Some games frequently struggle with loading, as if the game somehow cannot handle the maps created for the game. It is absolutely embarrassing when in the games there are numerous moments when a character does something and they cut away or fade to black because they did not make an animation for that scene. Games like Scarlet and Violet and BDSP were released with tons of glitches, some of which completely broke the game. The Paldean map practically doubles in size with how many out of bounds glitches there are, and while different developers did make BDSP, it is still embarrassing that there was a glitch that soft locked you with no way of getting out without closing the game. I know Game Freak loves Gen 1, but they did not have to return to making the games be held together by duct tape and dreams. One more issue I have, but maybe not everyone has, is the writing. I feel that a lot of times, while the story ideas are intriguing, they don't really delve into them, and the writing brings it down as it just feels bare bones. Now, there are a few explanations for this. First, Game Freak has to deal with working on a console that is pretty outdated at this point. The Switch has been around for 7 years, and there has to be a new Nintendo console coming out soon, because it's necessary at this point. But that is not really a great reason since a little game, you might have heard of it, called Tears of the Kingdom came out last year and showed what the Switch is capable of at its peak. Another thing is how these games have to meet deadlines so that the show, cards, merchandise, and countless other things can get new Pokemon. I feel that these deadlines also seem to have gotten worse over time. For example, from 1996 to 2000, 6 Pokemon games were released. That sounds like a ton at first, until you realize 3 are revised versions of Pokemon Red and Green, and 1 is an updated version of Gold and Silver. Meanwhile, from 2019 to 2023, so the same amount of years, we had 4 games and 2 DLCs for 2 of those games. While one of those games is developed by another company, that is still way more since the sizes of these games keep expanding. Now, you could say that Game Freak should hire more employees, meaning that work can be accomplished faster, and you're right, that would be a good idea. The thing is, though, Game Freak does not want to expand. Game Freak wants fewer developers because they prefer that type of development team. And it is just a little bit challenging to release new AAA games nearly every year when your entire development team consists of 169 people as of 2022. Remember, for the biggest franchise of all time. So, what could resolve this problem and bring Pokemon back to how it once was? Look at the title of the video right now. You see it? Yeah, do that. I feel that if Game Freak refuses to increase the size of its development team, then returning to 2D would be the next best alternative. Instead of concentrating on making the maps larger and more open, they can make the scope smaller to focus on the graphics, storytelling, and to iron out bugs. The thing that I absolutely love about the 2D era of Pokemon is just how much the game's evolved with each generation. Could you imagine the level of quality that could be reached had Pokemon continued being in 2D and updated every generation? Another reason is that 2D development is much quicker than 3D game development. Pokemon could function with a small development team now that they are not rushing these massive games in such a short time frame. Also, I believe more features could return if Pokemon returned to 2D. Since they are not spending time on the big expansive maps, they could bring back every Pokemon in the National Dex, the Battle Frontier, Pokemon contests. There are so many things that they could bring back. Heck, they could probably allow the player to return to a previous region, like in the Johto games that they had at the time. So much more could be done with this series in a 2D setting, especially since Game Freak would already be so experienced with creating these types of games. And the thing is, this stuff could also be done in 3D, but we will not see that if Game Freak keeps going the same way it has been. But I will say this, I feel like the most recent 3D games have definitely been a step up compared to the 3D games at the beginning of the Switch. Easily the best example is Legends Arceus. It was a tremendous step up in quality. There was almost a complete overhaul in the mechanics of Pokemon games. The story was a really interesting concept that hadn't been done before, and the writing to me definitely felt more like classic Pokemon pre-Gen 8. But the one thing that stands out less like a sore thumb and more that a thumb that's fallen off of someone's hand, is the fact that the graphics are just, there is no better word, it's terrible. It is a shame Game Freak had to release these games in such a condition. Now, why has Game Freak not attempted to do something like this? One reason that this is an idea that not really a lot of people talk about. Most people, when they see a new Pokemon game, they go, oh, the new Pokemon game is bad. Game Freak needs more development time. And while Game Freak deserves more time to develop these games, this could be another way to get better games out there. But most importantly, why would they even want to make better games? As I said earlier, Pokemon is the highest grossing media franchise of all time, and the games being not as great as they used to will not stop that. Sword and Shield is the second best selling Pokemon game, only behind Pokemon Red and Blue, that came out when the series was at the peak of Pokemania. As long as the games keep doing so well, nothing's going to change. With Pokemon seemingly incapable of not releasing at least something every year since 2016, I don't really have high hopes, but I do hope that someday we can get a new Pokemon game, 2D or 3D, that shows what makes this series so huge and beloved, because Pokemon deserves it. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out some of my other content. I have a bunch of other Pokemon related stuff. If you really like this video, subscribe so that you know when future content comes out. That's gonna be it for now, and I'll see you all in the next one.